this is James, and I'm here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting December the 4th, 2017. This week I'm continuing to work with playing card decks, and so the deck that I've chosen to assist me for this week's reading is the Gypsy Witch Fortune-Telling Playing Cards. They are published by US Game Systems Incorporated. So the reason for this deck selection comes as the response to a request from one of my viewers, Captain Nolan, who recently asked me if I would be willing to work with this particular deck for the next upcoming Oracle Outlook video. The only thing was I didn't have the deck in my collection, so I was very intrigued as to why this particular deck and why now. So I was going big picture and looking beyond Captain Nolan asking me about the deck and thinking that there may be something larger at work going on. Because I have other decks that kind of fit this kind of theme or mold or genre, but there was something about the particular request for this particular deck that kind of struck me. So since I didn't have the deck, what I did was I went to fellow YouTubers and I looked at some deck reviews and some walkthroughs of the deck so I could see it in its entirety. And then once I did that, I found the deck to be very reasonably priced. Here in the United States where I'm at, it's priced between $7 and $8. So that was another incentive to go ahead and get the deck, because I thought in the grand scheme of things, if I really didn't like the deck, if I felt like I didn't get on with the deck, if I felt like the deck didn't communicate or resonate with me, or I felt like I couldn't read well with it, then I wouldn't be out a whole lot of money. So I went ahead and got the deck. It arrived earlier this week. So I was a good boy and I put all my other decks aside so I could try and immerse myself between the time the deck arrived and the time I'm shooting this video, so I could kind of get some bearing as to how I would work with the deck. So that is the reason for the deck selection. So Captain Nolan, if you happen to be watching this, this is for you. So once again, we're working with the Gypsy Witch Fortune-Telling Playing Cards. They are by US Game Systems Incorporated. And so now let's move into this week's reading. Now I'm taking the deck in hand. I'm taking a few moments to shuffle the cards. And as I shuffle, I'm focusing on my usual intention and question, which is, what do we need to know for the week ahead? Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Fan the cards out, and now I'm going to be looking for 5 cards in the fan, because I like working with a line of 5. So I'm just looking for 5 cards that are getting my attention. Alright. Putting the remainder of the deck aside. Alright, so I have the line in front of me, and so what I'm going to do this week is, because this is still a relatively new deck for me, I'm going to go ahead and start at the far left and work my way over, reading one card at a time. So the first card here that we have, opening the line up, is the 2 of clubs. So now clubs is a suit for me that can represent work or business or something having to do with social activity, and it can also represent progress being made. So now the 2 is a number of relationship and partnership, but it can also be about cooperation. So I tend to read the 2 of clubs as either a working or business relationship, so there could be somebody is in the process of forming that or needing to take a look at that, or a situation where help is being offered or received. So I tend to look at that with the 2 of clubs. Now the symbol on the card is the railroad. So the railroad can come up when we're taking a look at a long journey. That's one of the meanings of this card. It represents a long journey. I tend to look at it as, you know, if we're talking about relationships and it doesn't matter the dynamics, it could be 2 things. I talked about a working or business relationship, right? But it could also be working on a relationship, you know, so that you can see some progress being made in that. And that doesn't necessarily mean just business. You know, you're putting the work or the effort into a relationship, right? You're wanting to have a relationship that works, right? So it could be that. Now, if that's the case, regardless of what the relationship is about, then the railroad could be about we're in a place where the question becomes is whether we're on either on track or on the right track, or what do we need to do to stay on track, right? So if we're talking about a working or business relationship or partnership, there may be something about the work that we're doing, each person in the relationship is doing, and it's about, the work in and of itself is going to help us stay on track, but there is a longer goal or a longer journey that's attached to that, and so maybe there's like little signposts or little stops along the way where you periodically have to make sure that you're still on track with that, or you're still on course with that. So I'm seeing that. But if it's not even in the working business sense, like I said, because again, clubs is all about social, so it could just be like your social activity, your social relationships, but there may be one in particular that you're asking the question is like, are we on track? Are we on the right track? Are we staying on track? So that is my take on the Two of Clubs and Railroad. So now let's take a look at the next card. So here with the next card we have the King of Spades. So spades can represent problems, it could represent challenges, it could represent blocks, it could represent obstacles and hurdles. That's my numeral go-to with spades. But it can also represent a need to use either our problem-solving skills or our decision-making ability. The King of Spades in particular, I call him like the going before the judge card. So this card could be about like, using wise judgment, using discernment, the ability to make decisions, that kind of thing. Going with the idea that's what a judge does. A judge makes judgments, right? So it could also be too like, the idea of taking a look at, are you being judgmental and critical of other people, or are you having to experience that and needing to defend yourself? Because those are two other aspects of the King of Spades that I take into consideration. Now, kings, generally speaking, can represent power, control, and mastery, right? And so it could be too like mastering an idea, because the King of Spades can also be about a mind full of ideas, right? So it could just be like, mastering your thinking, taking an idea and being successful with it, that kind of thing. The power of your mind, that kind of thing. Even the power of critical thinking, So there is that with the King of Spades. So now, it could also be too, like if there is some sort of work being done with the clubs coming before the spades, and it could be, you're doing some work, but it centers around a problem, and we're working the problem out, because when I have a spade, somewhere in the middle of the reading, it usually represents a problem that needs to be worked out. And so the best way to do that may be to look at it critically, or to make some sort of judgment or judgment call, or if we're making a decision, it may be a matter of weighing the pros and the cons, all those kinds of things, right? So there is that with the King of Spades. Now this has the symbol of the bride on it. So the bride can come up when, we're looking at fulfillment of an aim or fulfillment of a goal. So that makes sense with the railroad about the question about being on track or staying on track or being on the right track. And then you ask that every now and then but if you're asking the question, this card is saying, come back to whatever the goal was. Come back to whatever it is whatever started the long journey or the long process, whatever was that. Maybe you kind of lost sight of that. It's about coming back to that. What was the reason for even embarking on the journey? And then the bride is about helping you kind of maybe come back to the idea of like, oh yeah, this is why we set out on that. Or this is why we're doing this work. Or this is why we're, taking this course of action. That kind of thing. But the bride is all about fulfillment of something, right? So there is that. So now it would be very interesting to see what the bride is looking at, because she's looking to the right as well as the King of Spades. They're both facing this card, the middle card. So now here we have, here we have the Nine of Hearts. So the Nine of Hearts is the wish card in traditional cartomancy. And so now here we have a different suit. So here we have hearts. Hearts is all about love. It's all about feelings. It's all about emotions. It's all about relationships, right? So there may be a problem that we need to take a look at that's on an emotional level that we're trying to work out, right? And then that would make sense with the bride because the bride in that regards could be, a relationship change. When she's walking down the aisle, or she's in that wedding ceremony, she's walking in as a fiance and then she's leaving as a bride, right? So there could be something about a role changing or something of that nature, or something becoming more serious, right? That, as you're changing your role, as you're changing your title, there's more responsibility, there's more of a commitment to that, because of the change in and of itself. So when this card comes up, it represents like maybe attaining something on an emotional level, right? And so it's working through whatever you have that you may be carrying a sense of loss or disappointment about, and working through that. But typically the Nine of Hearts for me represents like having a hope or a wish and wanting that to be fulfilled, that kind of thing. And then with this card we have the Ship. So the Ship, again, is like the Railroad is about. Like, we're on this journey, because both of these are like travel cards. The journey, and then the Ship is travel. But in this regard, it's like we're on this journey. We want to see some fulfillment with that. And then the Ship is all about making progress with that. And then that would make sense going back to what I said about Railroad, about like, are we on track? Are we on the right track? Are we staying on track? And the best way you would know that would be to see some progress being made, right? So that is the Ship card, right? So there is that with Nine of Hearts and Ship. So now moving on to the next card. Here we have, okay, so now we have the Nine of Diamonds. This is very interesting. So now we have the 9 being repeated. So this, again, is about gain or attainment, right? And with that, 2 9s could represent this idea of unfinished business. So it could be about wrapping something up, completing something. It's very interesting. The diamonds, again, can represent things like power and success, going back to the energy of the King of Spades, right? So we have power again, but we have success. So again, we have this idea of wanting to work out something successfully, right? So there is that. Now, diamonds can also be about money. So this could be, financial gain. So here we have, with the Nine of Hearts, we have an emotional gain. But if we're working on something, and maybe it's a working business relationship or partnership, then it could be like there's a sort of financial gain or material reward or material gain attached to that, right? So there is that with the 9 of Diamonds. Now, this card has the Heart on it. So now the Heart is all about love and romance. So now again, we have this idea about maybe working on something, either one or two things. Either it's an actual love and romance, because that's what Heart means, or it could be about something that we have some sort of passion about and enthusiasm about, because I have those meanings for Heart when I'm not looking at something that has to do with a love or romantic relationship. Then the Heart is all about passion and enthusiasm. So it could be too, like Ship would then be about maybe a commercial venture, and maybe being passionate about that. Wanting to be passionate about seeing some progress being made, because it could be like progress leads to passion, leads to enthusiasm, because the Ship comes before the Heart, right? And it could also be too, for somebody, here's something that just coming to me in the moment with Bride, looking at Ship and Heart, could be about a bride, maybe somebody who's getting married, and they're actually going on a cruise, And so that could be something that they've been looking forward to, something that they're, always been wishing, is to go on a cruise. Because I'm seeing, and I'm only saying this because I'm seeing the Ship and I'm seeing Heart, and it makes me think of the old, now remember I date myself with old references, makes me think of the old show, The Love Boat. So, so somebody could be literally getting married and going on a cruise, right? So there is that. And it could be with the Railroad coming before it, could be like it was a long journey for the bride to get to being a bride. And so for her, it's about like this is a wish that she gets to see fulfilled, like being a bride, being somebody's wife, being married, that kind of thing. And so she's very happy about it. And she's in love with the idea of being married and being somebody's wife, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm seeing that, but it makes me feel like, being on track for a bride to get married and to go on a cruise. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. And now the last card rounding out the line. Oh, okay. Okay, so here we have the 7 of diamonds. So it's very interesting. So now we have 2 diamonds. So this is great because what I do is, the first thing I do is I look at color when I'm reading playing cards. So we had 2 cards that were black. So that usually represents working out a problem, especially with the clubs and the spade, respectively, in the reading. So it's about working out a problem. And then the rest of the cards are red. And so that usually represents positive. You know, black cards are usually negative and red cards are usually positive, and so that's about working out something. And then 2 cards from the suit of diamonds at the end represents working out something successfully, and a diamond and a diamond together as a combination represents improved success. So this represents, you know, this is very good because it represents a problem being worked out and worked out successfully. So that's the first thing I want to offer. The 7 of diamonds, again, is the idea of maybe if we were to look at this from a monetary standpoint. We talked about material gain with the 9 of diamonds. With the 7 of diamonds, here we have an investment, right? Because this can represent a lot of money. So I tend to look at this as my investment card. So we could be looking at stocks, bonds, investments, that kind of thing. If it's not about money, then this card, again, is about looking at something from a place of getting a return on the investment of my time, energy, and resources. So I'm recouping something from all that energy that I put into it. I'm getting a return on my investment. So, and with the 9 of diamonds and the 7 of diamonds, the return is going to be quite nice, right? So there is that. And so now I'm looking at the symbol on the card, and here we have flames on the hearth. That's the name of the symbol. And so the flames for me can represent, again, like I said with the heart card, about passion, right? So this could be, you know, having a burning desire. If I was to take heart and flames and put them together as a combination, it could represent a burning desire, right? So it could also be, too, you know, a love that warms the heart. It could be about having a warm heart. So again, that would go back to the 9 of hearts being the focus card, about a hope or a wish or feeling a sense of happiness, satisfaction, and fulfillment. But I think at the end of this reading, I want to say, like, whatever we put into a situation in terms of working out, we're going to reap a harvest, or we're going to get a return on the investment of that time and that energy. It's going to make me feel it's going to be well worth it at the end. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and round out and end this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care. Thank you.